Good evening, students. Good evening, Mansha. Welcome to the session. So, yes, we'll just quickly recap what we have done in the last class. So, in the last class, we started with the reassessment, right? In the reassessment, what did I tell you? Good evening, Viraj. What did I tell you? That the reassessment which is done is under 147. If the income chargeable to tax has escaped the assessment, the reassessment can happen. What is the procedure, students? We start with first that the AO should have the information suggesting that the income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. And what would constitute that particular information? That information is given under explanation 1 to section 148 to mean that it could be the information which has come through the risk management strategy formulated by the board. I told you that the income tax department collects the information through the SFTs from the reporting entities, from the financial entities, right? From the reporting entities, it collects the information. And if you do not furnish that information in your return file, then that constitutes the risk. And that's why first the notices are sent to you, or emails are sent to you through the e-campaign or e-verification scheme under 133C. Now, if the income tax department is not satisfied, it can reopen the assessment, right? So that. Then secondly, the audit objection. Good evening, Manish. The audit objection, if it is there, that can constitute the information. Third, the information collected by the income tax authorities under 133, 133B, C, all those sections, right? And then finally, it can also, the information which is received under the DTAA or the exchange of information agreement, or information which requires action in consequence of the order of tribunal or court. Now, if this information is received, then except in the case where the information is collected under 133, 133B, C or 134, sorry, the show cause notice is required to be issued under 148A after the AO making the inquiries with respect to the information that has been received. So after the information is with the AO will make the inquiry with respect to that information. It will conduct the inquiry with approval of the specified authority that whether indeed the income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. If he comes to the finding that it, according to him, yes, he will issue a show cause notice to the assessee to show cause as to why the reassessment should not be done under 147, why the notice should not be issued to him under 148 on the basis of information which is suggesting that the income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. The assessee will get the time which is specified in the notice, which will be between 7 to 30 days, and the assessee has to furnish the reply. Now, after considering the reply furnished by the assessee and based on the material available on record, the AO will decide whether it is a fit case to issue the notice under 148. And then the AO will pass the order under 148A, subsection D, that the 148 should be proceeded with. That the 148 should be proceeded with. The 148 notice should be issued. Now, the order which will be passed under 148A will be with the prior approval of the specified authority. Are we clear? Then, in case there is a deemed information. Now, what is a deemed information? Where search is conducted under 132, or books of accounts or documents or assets are requisitioned, where survey is conducted, where the AO is satisfied that the money, bullion, jewelry belongs to a particular person, or AO is satisfied that any books of accounts relate to the particular person, then except in the case of survey, 148A procedure has to be followed. But in all other cases, 148A procedure need not be followed. The AO need not follow the 148A procedure because the AO will be deemed to have the information which suggests that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. In those cases, except in the case of survey, for survey we need to follow the 148A inquiry, then the show cause notice, and then the order. And then only the 148 can be issued. But in all other cases, directly 148 can be issued. Notice under 148 can be issued. Now, the notice under 148 is issued to asking the assessee to furnish the return of income. It is issued along with the 148A order. The 148 notice is issued in cases where, for example, for the search cases, for the where the books of accounts or the documents are belonging to the assessee. In those cases, 148A order will not be there. Directly 148 will be there. Now, this of furnishing the of return of income, the time limit will be mentioned. Maximum within 3 months, the assessee has to file the return of income. Now, what is the time limit for issuing the 148 notice? The time limit is 3 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. From the end of the relevant assessment year. Right? And in cases where if the AO has in his possession any books of accounts, evidence, or documents that reveal that the income chargeable to tax represented in the form of any asset, any expenditure, or any entries in the books of account is likely to exceed rupees 50 lakh, then the time limit is 10 years. And in case the asset or expenditure relates to more than one previous year, then notice is required for all those previous years. Are we clear? Now, what is my relevant assessment year? The relevant assessment year means the year in which I have furnished the return, or that particular year in which I have earned the income. In case of search, it will relate to all those years for which the information is found out. Now, if the search or survey is conducted after 15th of March and the time limit for issue of notice is expiring on 31st of March, then the time limit shall be extended by 15 days. Also, for considering the time limit, the time to furnish the reply to show cause notice issued under 148A has to be excluded. And if after excluding the time limit is less than 7 days, then this shall be extended by another 7 days. Are we clear? Now, who is a specified authority? The specified authority in case of 3 years time limit is PCIT, PDIT, CIT, or DIT. And in case of the 10-year time limit, it's PCCIT, CCIT, and PDGIT and DGIT. Are we clear? Yes or no? Now, in case for the previous years, if the time limit has already expired, if for the years prior to 1/4/2021, whose time limit has already expired, for them, if the notice could not have been issued, now in the new scheme, the notice cannot be issued even though the time limit has been extended till 10 years. Are we clear? Yes. Then we saw that year also 143(2) notice is mandatory. Here also notice under 143(2) is mandatory. The show cause notice under 143(2) is mandatory. Then we can again have notice under 142(1), 142(2) calling for information, special audit, valuation of inventory, reference to valuation officer, and finally the order will be passed under 143(3) read with 147. The time limit of which is 12 months from the end of the month in which the notice, from the end of the financial year in which the notice is served under 148. And in the TP cases where reference is made to TPO, it is 24 months. Now, the time limit of 149 is not applicable. Time limit of 149 is not applicable where a notice is issued for reassessment to give effect to the finding or direction contained in the order passed by any court. That is under 150 subsection 1. But the restriction is again given under 150 subsection 2 to provide that where on the date of order of the court, the time limit has already expired for the years. Then for those years, the notice cannot be issued at all. Then for those years, the notice cannot be issued. So under 150 subsection 1, although the time limit is relaxed, 150 subsection 2 restores that. 150 subsection 2 restores that. Right? Yes or no? Any questions? Any doubt? Yes, good evening, Shankara. I'm better. Thank you so much. Good evening, Rita. Yes, thank you, Mansha. I'm better much. Mansha, the opportunity of being heard will be given to SSC only where 148A is applicable. Yes, you're correct. But then again, when the 148 will be also issued, after that, again 143.2 will be issued. So again, on issuing a 143.2, again you will get the opportunity to present your case. Yes or no? Any questions, any other doubt till now? Shall we proceed further? Yes? Okay. Now what we are going to do in today's class. Yes, under 150 subsection 1, the company A, which is the appellant, for that also the time limit which is there is relaxed under 150 subsection 1. But under 150 subsection 2, the time limit will get again restricted. The time limit will again get restricted. Are we clear? Yes or no? But for company A, the reassessment can happen till any point. This restriction will be only applying to company B. The 150 subsection 2 will apply only to company B. For company B, we cannot reopen the assessment beyond that. For company A, we can go because see, for company A, what we are trying to say is that the Supreme Court order, once it is passed, or any order once it is passed, it will become the law with the retrospective effect. Now, once it becomes the law with the retrospective effect, I can disallow it. But again, 150 subsection 2 is saying that I cannot reopen if the time limit has already expired. Okay? Yes or no? Okay. Let's proceed further. Now we are moving towards the next topic, which is the search cases. So just write down search and survey. Now in search cases, how does the search cases function? Let's try and understand. Now this is very, very important. The search is initiated under section 132. The search is initiated under section 132. Now this is the power of the income tax authority. This is the power of the income tax authority. Now let's try and understand that how does this search function? Okay, so as I told you, under 132, the income tax authority has the power to search, to initiate the search operations. Now, how or when the search will begin? Let's be very, very careful. So, where the income tax authority under 132, first of all, who is income tax authority under 132? Who is the income tax authority under 132 who can initiate the search? So in the case of the search, the income tax authority who can initiate the search, who is empowered to issue the authorization, is the Principal Director General or Director General or Principal Director or Director or Principal Chief Commissioner or Chief Commissioner or the Principal Commissioner or Commissioner of Income Tax. Are we getting that? So these are the authorizing officer who will give the authority to the subordinate officers to conduct the search and seizure operation. Now if, write down, where based on the information if the authorizing officer has reason to believe officer has reason to believe. If the authorizing officer has the reason to believe based on the information in his possession that the person to whom summons are issued, that the person to him summons are issued. In which section do we issue the summons? In which section the summons can be issued, student? Under which section the summons can be issued? Shankara, I said that the updated return can be filed till 24 months. So notice under 142.1, requiring the assessee to file the return of income will not be issued after 24 months expiry. Notice will be issued once the assessment commences, Shankara. Now, once the assessment commences under 143.2, Shankara, then the updated return cannot be furnished. So what did I say when I said about the updated return? I told you that the updated return cannot be furnished if the assessment has already commenced or has been completed. So in case the assessment has already been commenced, then in those cases, you have to file the return in response to either 142.1 or if there is a reassessment, then in response to 148. You cannot file the updated return in those cases. Is that clear, Shankara? Yes, students, when the summons are issued, under which section the income tax authorities have the power to issue these summons? We have discussed that. Yes, students, I'm not getting the answer. Yes. What are summons? What are summons, students? Yes, students, what are summons? No, Geeta, not under 142.2. Summons are not issued under 142.2. Under 142.2, Geeta, we have the power, not the power, the income tax authority issues the notice under 142.2 to furnish the information. That is not summon. Yes, Geeta, you're correct. Summons means to present physically, to attend the income tax office, to appear in the court of law. Yes, Mansha, you're correct. But that is not under 142.2. Under 142, Mansha, we have the notice for collecting the information. It is under 131, which says that the income tax officer has the power as that of the civil court. As that of the civil court. Clear? Okay. So, if the person to whom summons are issued, if the person to whom the summons are issued, or a notice under 142.1 is issued. What is a notice under 142.1? What is a notice under 142.1 for? Or a notice under 142.1 was issued. What is the notice under 142.1 for? Fast students, what is the notice for 142.1? No, Munish, it is not for section 148. Good evening, Namrata. Yes, Geeta, for filing the return of income and to produce the books of accounts. Shankara, within how many days will notice under 142(1) be issued? That depends on the income tax officer. Generally, if it is to produce the books of accounts and to file the return of income, it is issued within like 7 to 10 days of the notice issued under 143(2). Namrata, it is not only to furnish ITR, but even to furnish the books of accounts. Okay. So, where based on the information, if the authorization officer has reason to believe, see here I'm not using the word assessing officer. You will not use the word here assessing officer because he is not assessing your income. Assessing officer will only come under either 143 or under 147. Here, we are not talking about the assessing officer. Here, the search has been conducted. The raid is happening. Here, he is not assessing your income. So, here we are talking about the authorization officer. Be very clear with words. Yes, Namrata, to produce the books of account. So, if the authorization officer has reason to believe that the person to whom summons are issued under 132, 131(1) or a notice is issued under 142(1) to produce the books of accounts or documents has omitted or failed to do so. So beware. When the summons are issued to your client, do not ignore that because that can even result in the raid on the client's place. Or a notice is issued to furnish books of account that can also result in raid. Are we clear? Or the person to whom summons are issued or a notice is issued under 142(1) to produce the books of accounts or any document has omitted or failed to produce or would not produce. Or would not produce. He has either not produced or if he has a reason to believe, authorization officer has reason to believe that he will not produce in future. The person, see again, here I am not writing the word assessee because he is not getting assessed. Here I am writing the word the person is in possession of, meaning the assessment proceedings may not be ongoing on this assessee. That is why we are not using the term assessee, we are using the term person and the authorization officer. The person is in possession of any valuable article or thing, including money, bullion, jewelry, representing income which has not been disclosed. Or you can just write then representing undisclosed income. So here the income, most of the time the raid is for point number B rather than point number A. So if the authorization officer has any information based on which he has a reason to believe that the person to whom summons are issued or a notice is issued under 142(1) will not produce the books of accounts or documents or has already failed to do that or a person is in possession of any asset, valuable article or thing which represents the undisclosed income. Are we clear? So here, it is important to have the reason to believe. It is important to have the reason to believe. Although this reason to believe need not be disclosed to anybody. This need not be disclosed because in such cases, it is possible that if you reveal your reason, the person will try to hide the things. Are we clear? So the reason to believe may not be disclosed. It cannot be disclosed to any person, including any appellate authorities like CITA or ICAI or even courts. So it need not be disclosed even to ITAT or any person. But this is a prerequisite for search. Without this, the search cannot happen. Are we clear? So, where based on the information in the possession of the authorizing officer, he has reason to believe. Now, once the reason to believe exists, what can happen under the search? What can happen under the search? Namrata, what if it is unintentionally? I didn't get that. Yes, after issuing the notice under 143.2, the notice will be issued under 142.1 either to produce the books of accounts Shankara or to furnish the ITR in case ITR has not been furnished. Okay? Fine? Okay. Now what can happen under the search operations? So what are the powers of the authorized officer? I'm talking about the authorized officer, the one who is conducting the search, not the authorizing officer. So the subordinates will be the authorized officer. The superior will be the authorizing officer. They will authorize the subordinates to go and do the search. What are the powers? First, to enter and search any building or place. So you have seen in the movies how the raids are conducted, isn't it? Have you seen or not? So they just enter into and start searching any place, isn't it? So that is the first power that they have under the search. That is number one. So under the search, they can just enter into any particular place. They can enter into any particular place and start searching that, including any ship, including any vehicle, aircraft, where they have a reason to suspect that any books of accounts, money, documents, valuable articles are kept. Okay? So any place, this need not be a place of business, where they have reason to suspect that any books of accounts, documents, valuable article, money are kept. So just they could have a reason to suspect that this place would have anything. So just, you see in movies that the income tax officer come, do not touch your phone, do not touch any other object. They would come, they would just open the drawers, throw the objects out of that. They would just tear off the sofa covers and everything, right? break open the locks of any door. So if any almirah is there or any safe custody is there and the keys are not readily available, just break open the locks and then just, throw your clothes out of that cupboard. They can do all of that. So break open the locks. Third, search any person. They can search any person who has got out of that building or is able to get into the building or is present in that building where the search is being conducted. If there is a reason to suspect that the person has secreted any books of accounts or document. If there is reason to suspect that person has secreted books of accounts, documents, or money or valuable article. Do you remember the series where the search was conducted? Very nice series. Yes, Mancha, Raid movie. Yes. But there was one recent series which one, belonging to a financial background should watch it. Shankara, if the ROI is not filed even by salaried class with nil tax payable, will notice under 143 to be issued? Yes, it can be very well issued. Because if the income tax officer has some information that, let's say, for example, this person has some other income also, or, he may have done certain expenditure more than his income. So then how did he get some income? So he can issue 143 to notice. Reason to believe or suspect means, Namrata, reason to believe means that I have some kind of belief or I have some suspicion that this is going to be the case. That is the reason to believe or suspect. Yes, Harshad Mehta case. Didn't you see that movie or the series one on Prime, right? The last episode, last one or two episodes that we were, witnessing, where suddenly one fine morning when Harshad Mehta was at his home, and then the income tax officers just barged in, or I think it was CBI who barged in. It was not income tax officer. I think it was income tax also per se. They just barged in his home and they just tried to search everything, right? So one should watch that series, Harshad Mehta's case. That is like a classic understanding of how that big scam was done. So, somebody from financial background is a must watch that particular series. It's one of the finest series that one can see. Right? So in that also there's an example of how the search happens. And of course the raid movie, as you rightly pointed out. If ROI is not filed, is there any time limit for issuing notice? Yes, Shankara, even if ROI is not filed, the time limit remains as 3 months from the end of the financial year. So in that particular case, in that case, the 143.2 notice will not be issued. Indirectly, that case 148 will happen. In that case, directly the 148 will happen. Because you have not filed the ROI, so normal scrutiny assessments will not happen. You will have 148 issued to you. Clear, Shankara? Then there will be directly reassessment. Okay, so let's proceed towards the search topic again. Now, they can search any premises, they can search any person, they can break open any lock. What other additional powers do they have? Now, in respect of the search operations, they can require the seizure of the books of accounts and documents. And they can exercise these powers outside the jurisdiction also. So the authorizing officer who is there, who has the power to authorize the search of any building. Now he can authorize the search of his building within his jurisdiction, where the place is there. He can also, if he has reason to believe that there is some another place in another area where he doesn't have the jurisdiction, but he can go and search that place if he has reason to believe that there will be delay in obtaining the authorization from another principal chief commissioner having the jurisdiction over that particular place. Because what happened, let's say for example, in, let's say, Vasant Vihar, the search takes place. Now let's say for example, there is another place in Delhi. There's another place in Delhi, let's say Gurugram. So let's say for example, in that particular place, the Vasant Vihar's this authorizing officer does not have jurisdiction, let's say, in Dwarka. So what he will do is, if he feels that this information can just get, quickly travel to Dwarka and then they may just run away from that place. Because authorization may take time from the principal chief commissioner of Dwarka. So he can search that place also. Are we clear? So they can search any other place even if they do not have the jurisdiction. Now with reference to the books of accounts and documents, just write down. With reference to the books of account or documents, they can inspect any books of accounts or document. So basically, whosoever is in the possession or control of the books of accounts or documents, they could be in the computer also. That person has to give access of the computer to the authorized officer to inspect the books of accounts or any other documents. Then they can also seize the books of accounts or the documents. Now, if you watch this Harshad Mehta case, the Harshad Mehta series which was there, go and watch tonight. You will get the real idea how this particular raid cases work. Those who would have watched it would know this was the Scam 1992 series which is called, right? So, in that particular case, the SBI is SBI's officer because he had done some scam with SBI is calling Mr. Harshad Mehta and is asking him to clear the dues of SBI. Harshad Mehta says, how can I clear the dues? I can clear the dues only after, let's say, 1 week's time. Why? Because my books of accounts are seized. Give me 1 week time. He requests to the SBI officer. There's a scene where he goes to SBI's office and is saying to SBI officer that I will be able to clear dues only within 1 week's time. I cannot clear the dues before 1 week because my books of accounts are already seized. So I'm arranging the money. Income tax officers have seized the books of my accounts. I don't have access to that. So basically, in these cases, under the search operation, the books of accounts can very well be seized. And where it is not practicable to seize the books of accounts, in those cases, the authorized officer can serve an order on the owner or any person who is in the possession of the books of accounts that he shall not remove the books of account except with the prior permission of the authorized officer. So you can just write down over here, in case books of accounts cannot be seized, the order of restraint can be placed. If books of accounts cannot be seized, order of restraint, that is not to remove the books of accounts without permission. So order of restraint can be made. However, this order of restraint will not be deemed to be a seizure of the books of accounts. And this order can be only done for 60 days time. So order of restraint for maximum 60 days. Are we clear? Then they can make the identification marks in the books of accounts. They can make the copies of the books of account. Or documents. Okay? Yes or no? Any question? Yes or no? Are we clear up till this? Reassessment should be completed within 12 months, or can it be extended by another 12 months, Mansha? No, it cannot be extended. It can only be extended when there is a reference to a transfer pricing officer. Clear, Mansha? Now, where a search for books of accounts or documents has been authorized, and the authorizing officer who is there has the information, has a reason to suspect that these books of accounts or documents or any other valuable article or thing or money are kept in any building which are not specified in the search warrant. You know, the search warrant is issued. So you have seen the raid movie, or you have seen Harshad Mehta's scam, where they come up, aapke against search warrant hai. Right? So the search warrant which is there is only there for this particular building. But the authorizing officer now has a reason to suspect that there could be the books of accounts or valuable article in some other building which are not mentioned in the search warrant. Then he may authorize the authorized officer to search another place. Are we clear? So then the income tax officer who is there, the authorizing officer who is there, can authorize to search the other place or building also. So accordingly, if a search warrant is issued authorizing the search of a particular place specified in search warrant, and the authorized officer during the search finds that the books of accounts or assets could have been secreted in some other building which is not specified in the search warrant, he could request the authorizing officer to authorize him to search the another building. Are we clear? Yes or no? Now in respect of the money, jewelry, valuable article or thing. First, in respect of money. First in sorry. First, in respect of money, they can They can seize the money, bullion, valuable article, or jewelry. Are we clear? They can seize the money, bullion, valuable article, or jewelry in case it is found. So, in case of money, bullion, jewelry, valuable article. They can seize this if they find as a result of search. So, in these cases, in case of they can seize the money, bullion, jewelry, valuable article as found as a result of search. However, any bullion, jewelry, or any other valuable article which is in the nature of stock in trade, that shall not be seized. The authorized officer maximum can just make a note of the inventory. They cannot seize the stock in trade. So you can just write down if in the nature, obviously money cannot be stock in trade. If in the nature of stock in trade, it cannot be seized. It cannot be seized. And when, let's say, for example, it is not possible to take the physical possession of any valuable article or thing due to its volume, due to its weight, or any other physical characteristics, or it may be of some dangerous nature, the authorized officer may serve an order on the owner who or any person who is in the immediate possession that he shall not remove or deal with it except with the previous approval of the authorized officer. And this will be deemed to be the order of seizure. Again, if it is in the nature of stock in trade, then this seizure will not apply. In the case of money, bullion, jewelry, or valuable or any other, in the case of money and bullion and jewelry, not valuable article, where the authorized officer cannot remove it due to again its characteristics, then the authorized officer will again give the order of restraint on the person who is in the possession of that money, bullion, jewelry, that they shall not deal with it except with the permission of the authorized officer. However, in that case, it shall only be an order of restraint and not order of seizure. They are just restraining them, but they are not seizing it. Are we clear? And that order again will be applicable only for maximum 60 days. So just write down. If the valuable article cannot be seized, deemed order of seizure by restraining the owner not to deal with it. If the money, bullion, or jewelry cannot be seized, order of restraint, for max 60 days. Okay, so you can just write down in case of money, bullion, jewelry, then you can make this kind of table: valuable article, books of accounts, or sorry, stock in trade, and then books of accounts or the documents. Okay. So seizure, this can be seized, this can be seized, this cannot be seized, and this can be seized. Okay. Then order of restraint can be made for this, can be made for this. It cannot be made in case of this and this. Deemed seizure, sorry, it can be only made for the valuable article or thing. Okay. So basically, in case of only valuable article where it is not possible to take the physical possession, then they may just serve on the order not to remove or deal with this particular product except with the prior approval of the authorized officer. And this will be deemed to be the seizure. However, in case of money, bullion, jewelry, if they cannot remove it, they may just serve an order on the person who is in the possession that he shall not remove or deal with it except with the prior permission of officer. But that shall not be deemed to be the order of seizure. It will be only order of restraint. Yes or no, students? Any question? Search warrant is not to be signed by Finance Minister Mansha. It has to be signed by the authorized officer, not by Finance Minister. Finance Minister is not the authorized officer. Namrata, it will only be seized. Whether it is undisclosed or not, we will understand in some point of time. Shankara, where the fake CBI officers come and seize all the jewelry, and when the real CBI officers come, that they say that the CBI has no power to seize gold, only income tax authorities can seize gold. I'm not sure about CBI's power, Shankara. Namrata, the seizure and restraint, what is the difference between that? That's a very good question. So basically, the power of seizure or the deemed seizure versus the power of restraint. Okay. So what is the difference between the two? That's a very, very good question. Now let's try and understand that in detail. I was going to come on that. So in case of deemed seizure, the authorized officer shall have no power to seize, even not seize the actual stock, sorry, not the actual stock, the actual valuable article. Because he is not able to take the physical possession of that. But there is a deemed seizure. There is a deemed seizure because that particular article, I'm not able to seize it. I am just saying that you cannot do anything with that. You cannot do anything with that. I'm seizing. Even though I'm not taking the physical possession, I'm seizing it. And there is in case I'm not taking the physical possession, I'm putting a deemed order of seizure. Deemed seizure. That is the attachment order. I'm attaching that particular valuable article. You cannot do anything with that. Even though under the order of restraint also, In the order of restraint also, there's a similar restriction that you cannot deal with that, but that is only for 60 days. It is not getting seized. I'm just restraining you that you cannot do anything with these books of accounts, money, bullion, jewelry for 60 days. I'm just putting you some restriction in that. That is not the order of seizure. The order of seizure means I'm attaching your property. The seizure order has no restriction. Are we clear? So this is the order of seizure is attachment, whereas in the case of the restraint, there is no attachment. Are we clear? Any questions, any other doubts? So in this seizure, we are attaching the property itself. Yes or no? It's kind of confiscating it. Okay? Any other question? Yes? Okay. While order of seizure cannot pass against given article and SIT, what is logic? Namrata, that is not to cause any difficulty to the person, because if it is attached, you cannot even pay off any dues by selling the stock. You cannot even pay off the dues by selling the stock. So the stock is ideally not attached so that you can continue to do business in that. We can just make a note of that. We cannot hinder your normal business operations. Okay, so that's why the stock is not attached or seized in this particular case. So, you know, the search which is there, or the raid as you commonly call it, these were not present when the 1922 Act was passed. You know, Income Tax Act was there even in 1922. Then again, we had the 1961 Act. At that point of time, this search and seizure power were not there. It was only after the Second World War that there was a necessity which was felt to tax the profits which were made during the wartime. And that's why these powers of search and seizure were introduced in the 1922 Act first, after the World War. And at that point of time, the High Court in Assam had just struck down these powers as being violative of the fundamental freedom. And then again, even in the 1961, these particular powers were then reintroduced only when there is a reason to believe that there is going to be some tax evasion. So after that, careful consideration the search can be. It cannot be always that the search is exercised. Are we getting that? So there has to be information which suggests that yes, there's a reason to believe that there's some valuable article or money which is represented in the form of undisclosed income has been evaded. So this is not a case where the assessment is getting made. It's a search operation which is being done. Are we getting this particular point? And there is the warrant of authorization which should be issued. Any questions? Any other doubt? Yes? Any questions? Yes or no, students? Yes, as I said, the bullion, jewelry, valuable article can be seized, but the stock in trade cannot be seized. The stock in trade cannot be seized. And the deemed seizure can only be there in the case of the valuable article. It shall not apply in the case of stock in trade, even in the case of money. Yes? Order of restraint is not seizure. Yes, correct. Okay. They get information, Namrata, from different sources. They have linkage with the different departments. They have the information which they get from CBI. They get information from narcotics, from various from the PMLA. So they get information under different laws. There's a cross exchange of information. Namrita, this table is not clear. I've just made a kind of summary over here that this money, bullion, jewelry can be seized. SID cannot be seized. Order of restraint can be only placed in case of money, bullion, jewelry and books of accounts. And the deemed seizure can only be done for valuable article. So I've only made that. Okay. Yes or no? Fine. Let's proceed further then. So now in the case of search, 1 second, I think the screen sharing just stopped. Okay. Now in the case of the search, understand one thing. Now, in the search cases, what usually happens is once the property is attached, let's say for example, now your property also gets attached or seized. Now, what are the other powers that the income tax officer has? Now, the income tax officer, the authorized officer can also request the service of a police officer as well to assist them in carrying out the search operation. Are we getting that? And they can examine on oath any person who is found to be in possession or control of any books of accounts, documents, money. So they can examine the person on oath. You can just write that. Examine any person on oath. Okay. Then the books of accounts and any documents which are seized by the income tax authority. Now, these documents should be seized for a maximum period of 30 days from the date of the assessment order. From the date of the assessment order. Once the assessment is made, you have to return the books of accounts to the assessor. You cannot just keep with yourself for always. So within 30 days, these should be given. Unless the reasons for retaining the same are recorded in writing and are approved by the higher authorities. So they cannot be retained for a period exceeding 30 days after the assessment proceeding in respect of the years for which the books of accounts are taken up are completed. So basically the maximum time limit for seizure of the books of accounts, you can write maximum 30 days from assessment order. The restraint order can be for 60 days, but 60 days from the date of the order of restraint. But the seizure of books of accounts can be only made for 30 days from the date of the assessment order, I'm saying. Are we clear? Now, let's say, for example, certain books of accounts are found, or any money, bullion, jewelry, or valuable article is found. But the authorized officer has no jurisdiction over the person. The authorized officer has no jurisdiction over the person whose books of accounts are found during the search. So I may have conducted the search, but then I found out that I don't have any jurisdiction on this person whose books of accounts I have found. It could be relating to some third company, which is incorporated, let's say, in Bombay. I have got books of accounts. Let's say I've searched a person in Delhi whose company is incorporated in Bombay. And I've found the books of accounts for that company. Then the books of accounts or any valuable article, money, jewelry, which is seized shall be handed over to the assessing officer having the jurisdiction over that person. Are we clear? So it will not be taken up by me. I will hand over everything to the assessing officer of that person. Yes. So I am not the assessing officer of that person. But whosoever is the assessing officer, I will hand over the books of accounts to him. Yes or no? Any questions till now? Any doubt? Are we clear? Yes or no? Yes? Can they get information from foreign countries? Yes, they can get the information, Mancha, from foreign country. Yes. So the books of accounts which are there can be maximum seized for 30 days from assessment order and another 30 days if the approval is obtained from the higher authority. Another 30 days if the approval is obtained from the higher authorities. But in that case, the assessee can object. Additional time as approved by higher authorities. The assessee can object beyond 30 days. The assessee can raise the objection if retained beyond 30 days. Okay. Now, there are certain presumptions which are raised under the search cases. There are certain presumptions which are getting raised under the search cases. Now, what are the presumptions which are raised? There are certain rebuttable presumptions which are raised. So the law will presume unless you rebut it, unless you revoke that with a proof that the books of accounts which are found in the possession of any person belong to that person. The content of the books of accounts are true. Third, the signature in the books of accounts or document are in the handwriting of person in whose possession the books of accounts are found. Are we clear? So these will be presumed during search unless you rebut the presumption and prove the facts otherwise. So you can just write down over here. A rebuttable presumption. Number one, the books of accounts or the documents or assets in possession of any person belong to the person. Second, the content of books of accounts or documents are true. Signature in the books of accounts or documents is of the person. Are we clear? So these will be the rebuttable presumptions that will be created, which will be raised. Yes, Namrata, I will summarize everything. Can the books of accounts be seized before the assessment order? Yes, Namrita, books of accounts will of course be seized before the assessment order. When the search will be conducted at that time, the books will be seized. Now, these will be kept with the authorized officer until the assessment is made. But once the assessment order is passed, within 30 days of that, it has to be returned. Maximum, it can be exceeded, but only after the permission obtained from the higher authorities. Belong to that person means it belongs to me. The books of accounts are of mine. So you cannot say that I've just kept somebody else's. Let's say, for example, the raid is conducted in my premises. I'm a chartered accountant. The raid is conducted in my premises. Now I've kept the books of accounts of my clients over here. It will be presumed that it belongs to me. Unless I rebut that. Unless I say, no, it doesn't belong to me. It is of my client. Are we clear, Namrita? Okay. Then, in the search cases, there can be attachment of the property also. There can be the provisional attachment of the property also being made. So, for protecting the interest of revenue and safeguarding the recovery, the authorized officer, during the course of search, he can attach the property belonging to the assessee. We can provisionally attach any property belong to assessee with the prior approval of the Director General or the Principal Director General. So you can write provisional attachment of property to protect the interest of revenue after obtaining the approval from higher authorities. Now, this provisional attachment shall be for 6 months' time. From the 6 months. For maximum 6 months, the provisional attachment can be made. And for getting the valuation of that property, a reference can also be made to a registered valuer or a valuation officer referred to in 142A to estimate the fair market value of the property, who will submit a report to the assessing officer. Yes or no? So basically, the provisional attachment of a property can be made during the search operation. Either during the search or within 60 days from the conclusion of the search. Are we clear? So within that time frame, the provisional attachment of the property can be made. So you can write down during the search or within 60 days from conclusion of the search. Okay? Yes or no? Any doubt? Any questions till now? Yes, students? 6 months from the date of the provisional attachment order. 6 months from date of attachment order. Yes, Namrita? Okay. So in these cases will be governed by the Criminal Procedure Code. So any contravention of these, if you're not cooperating, you may be penalized under the Criminal Procedure Code. Yes or no? Any questions? Any doubt? Yes. Okay. Now, another thing which is there under 132A. So we have understood about the search operations under 132. I'll summarize everything after the break, but we first will complete what is the search operations we are talking about. Okay. Now, once you have the property which is seized or any asset which is seized, now this asset can be applied. How it can be applied? So that is provided under 132B. So just write down application of asset. So just write down application of asset seized. Section 132B. So the asset seized can be applied first for the existing liability under the Income Tax Act. Existing liability under the Income Tax Act. Now, this will not include the advance tax payable. This does not include the advance tax payable. Meaning any liability which is due for the earlier years, not any advance tax that we are looking at. Liability then determined on the completion of assessment or reassessment. Liability determined on completion of assessment or reassessment pursuant to the search. So any existing liability first and then any liability which is determined pursuant to the search during the assessment or reassessment, including the penalty and interest. Including the penalty plus interest. Now, if the assets consist solely of money or partly of money and partly of other assets, then the AO may apply the first money in discharge of these existing liability plus any liability determined during the asset, and the assessee shall be discharged of such liability to the extent of money so applied. Then the other assets which are remaining other than money, now these will be sold off. So these assets shall be deemed to be under restraint, and the tax recovery officer who is there, he will recover the amount of such liabilities by way of sale of such assets. And then any assets or proceeds which remain after these payment of liabilities will be paid over to the person who was in the possession of that asset. Are we clear? So just write down the liabilities, or you can just write down manner of application of asset seized. Manner of application of asset seized. Money seized would be utilized to discharge the liabilities the asset seized would then be sold to discharge the liabilities. The amount which is remaining after the discharge of liability, proceeds of asset or any asset remaining after the discharge of liabilities shall be paid to the person in possession from whom asset was seized. From whom the asset was seized. Now, if the person who was in the possession of the asset makes an application to the AO within 30 days from the month in which the asset was seized for release of asset, and he explains the nature and source of the acquisition of the asset to the satisfaction of the AO, then the AO is required to release the asset within 120 days from the date on which the search was completed, after meeting any existing liabilities, with the prior approval of the higher authorities. So, you can write down on application of the person to release the asset if the application is made within 30 days from the month in which asset was seized, plus the nature and the source of the seized asset is explained to the satisfaction of AO. Source of, nature and source of acquisition of seized asset is explained to the satisfaction of the AO. Then AO, after obtaining approval from higher authorities and after meeting any existing liability, release the asset within 120 days from the search conclusion. From the conclusion of search. Okay. Now, in case where the amount of assets seized exceed the liabilities, so any excess is going to be paid off to the assessee. But on that amount, the assessee shall be entitled to an interest at the rate of 0.5% per month. After the expiry of 120 days from the date on which the authorization was given. So in this particular case, the amount of 0.5% shall be paid as the interest. Okay. So basically, interest at the rate of 0.5% per month shall be paid after the 120 days. If after 120 days this is not released, then interest shall be paid. Yes, 30 days from the end of the month, Namrata. Mansha, provisional attachment means that till I compute your taxes, I am provisionally attaching the property so that it should not happen tomorrow you run away and I cannot recover the amount. So to safeguard the interest of the revenue, the attachment is made provisionally. It's not final attachment. I'm making it provisional. Yes, even if you're not legal owner of property, Namrata, even if you have possession, then it can be seized. Okay, students. Yes or no? Any questions so far? Any doubts? I will again revise it once again. I'll summarize everything. But are we clear about this? Yes. Any questions? Yes or no? Okay. Now, in case, understand that in case where, let's say, for example, the authorizing officer has a reason to believe, based on the information in his possession, that any person to whom these summons are issued or a notice is issued under 142(1) to produce the books of accounts, and that person has either omitted to produce or will not produce it. And these books of accounts have been into the custody of any other officer or any asset which is represented by undisclosed income is in the possession or the custody of any other officer. Then in those cases, so let's say for example, the custody is not with the assessee. The custody is with, let's say, CBI or let's say another authorized officer. Then in those cases, the authorizing officer will require the subordinate officer to require the officer who is having the possession to deliver these books of accounts to this officer by requesting him to give it to us. So in case the search has been conducted, the search has already been conducted on some other person. But the books of accounts which are there are seized of, let's say, person A. The search was conducted on person B. Now the authorizing officer of person A will request the authorized officer of person B to give the books of accounts to us if they have reason to believe that this person A has some undisclosed income or any asset which is represented in the form of undisclosed income, or he is not going to produce us the books of accounts if we will ask him. Are we clear? So again, they should have reason to believe to even requisition any other officer to give the books of accounts belonging to their assessor. Yes or no? Any questions? So this, once the requisition is made to authorized officer of person B who has collected the books of account, that officer will deliver the books of account on the requisition being made, shall deliver the books of accounts to this particular authorized official. Yes, and then they can examine the books of accounts, seize them, whatever they want to do, what powers they have under 132, they can do it here as well. Yes? Any questions or any doubt? Yes or no? Any doubt, students? Yes? Okay, students. So we'll take a break over here and then we get back. We are then required to do the power of survey. Then we are required to do the power of survey. We have already done the search. Now we are required to do the power of survey. Yes, and then with that, we will finish off even the income tax authorities. Okay, so let's take a break of 10 minutes and then we get back. Let's take a break. Any questions? Anything you want to ask with respect to the search? Is this clear? Okay, I'll just quickly recap now everything what we have done so far. So as I said, in respect of the search operations under 132, what happens is that the assessing officer has the power to conduct the search on any premises, whether within his own jurisdiction or for which he has the reason to suspect that there could be some books of accounts or valuable Article 9. Now, when he has a reason to believe, based on the information in his possession, that the person may not come up for the summons under 131 or may not produce the books of accounts or documents under the notice issued to 142.1, or he has the valuable article, jewelry, money, bullion in the form of undisclosed income. So in those cases, the search operations can be initiated by the authorized officer. Now, once the search operations are initiated, what are the powers which are there? The powers are to search any building or place, whether within the jurisdiction, whether if it is possible that the authorization from the other authorized officer may take time. So then they may just search another building as well, if they have a reason to suspect that the books of accounts are lying there as well. Break open the locks of any doors. In respect of books of accounts, they can inspect the books of accounts, they can make the identification marks, they can copy the books of accounts, they can also seize the books of accounts, but after the assessment order is passed, after 30 days from that, they have to return it. They can, if they cannot seize the books of accounts, they can place an order of restraint, but that will not be the seizure. That will not be deemed seizure. Then that order of restraint will be for maximum 60 days. In case of money, bullion, jewelry, valuable article, they can again seize that, but it should not be a stock in trade. If it's a stock in trade, they cannot seize it. They can just make a note of the inventory. In case the money, bullion, jewelry cannot be seized, they can again place the order of restraint. That will not be a deemed seizure for 60-day period. In case of valuable article, if it cannot be seized, they can place the order of deemed seizure. They can place the order of the deemed seizure. Now, once these assets are seized, if they belong to some another assessee, they will hand it over to the another officer who is having, they will hand it over to the assessing officer who has the jurisdiction over that person. Are we clear? Now, once these assets are seized, these can be applied with respect to the existing income tax liability and then any liability that may be determined after the assessment, any liability determined during the assessment or reassessment based on the search, plus any interest or penalty. And first the money will be applied, and then if the assets are there, that will be sold off and that will be applied. Now, if any asset is remaining or any proceeds from the assets are remaining, that will be paid to the person. In case the person makes an application, for the release of the asset, and if he satisfies to the AO, the nature and the source of the acquisition of that asset to the satisfaction of AO, then the AO can release the asset after obtaining the previous approval from the higher authorities, and after applying it towards the existing liability, he can release it within 120 days from the search. However, if it is paid after 120 days, then 0.5% interest. Then the provisional attachment of the property can be made in order to protect the interest of the revenue and to safeguard the recovery within for a period of 6 months. For a period of 6 months, the provisional attachment of the property can be made after obtaining the prior approval of the Principal Director General. Are we clear? So now, one case law here which we would like to discuss. One case law that I would like to discuss over here. Okay, one more thing. The reasons to believe need not be disclosed even to the ITA. Then there will be presumption which will be raised with respect to the assets or books of account that they belong to this person. The contents of the books of accounts are true. The signature are of this person only. Yes. Now, one case law that I would like to discuss in the case of Hemant Kumar Sindhi. Now, what was this case? So, there was search carried out in the premises of this assessee. And the assessee voluntarily disclosed some income during the search. The assessee, however, filed an application that the gold bars which were seized during that search operations, that these gold bars should be sold off and the income and the proceeds which are realized can be applied towards the adjustment of tax on the undisclosed income. Now, what will happen with that? Obviously, he will save on the interest under 234B and C, because if he discloses income now and he's asking income tax authority to calculate the tax on this undisclosed income, and you sell these gold bars and apply it towards the tax amount which is coming, so that will save me from additional 234B and C, which will arise if the assessment is happening at a later stage. Can he do so? Can he make an application today? That was a question before the court. The court said the application for the release of asset can be made, but the amount of what it says that the asset will be released after applying for the existing liability, existing tax liability. So, if you look at it, after meeting the existing liability, only then the asset will be released. Now, how do we determine the existing liability? The liability will be determined only on the completion of the assessment. Until the assessment has been completed, how can the liability be crystallized? The assessee may make an application at any time to the assessing officer for release of the assets seized. And if he explains the nature and the source of the asset, then the assessing officer will apply the amount of the asset towards the existing liability and then will release the asset after obtaining the approval. Now, only when the liability is determined, it would stand crystallized. But how would the liability will be determined? Only after the assessment is done. Before the assessment, the liability cannot be determined. So therefore, in these cases, in this case of Hemant Kumar Sindhi, it was held that the asset cannot be released until the liability is determined. Until the liability is determined. So you can write down only after completion of assessment, the tax liability can be determined. Hemant Kumar Sindhi. Okay, the Allahabad High Court case. Fine. Now, once the search operations are conducted, as I said, the assessment will now be made. What will happen? What the income tax officer will do with the amount of information that he has collected? Either he can keep it with himself if it belongs to his own assessee, or he can pass on to the another assessing officer in respect of whom, in respect of whose assessee the information has been obtained. But now, how the assessment will happen? So prior to 2021, there used to be a separate assessment in case of the search and seizure operations. But now the assessment is carried out under 147 itself. Now the assessment is carried out under 147 itself. Now there is no separate assessment. The assessment will be carried out under 147 itself, even in respect of the search operations. So therefore, if you now remember, what did I tell you under 148? That there will be deemed information with the AO if the information is obtained under the search and survey operations. In those cases, in the case of search, 148A will not be applicable. So, if a search is initiated under 132, or the books of accounts are given to another assessing officer, or if the AO is satisfied that any money, bullion, jewelry which is seized in the search belongs to this assessee, or if the AO is satisfied that the books of accounts pertains to this assessee, then in that case 148A will not be applicable and there will be deemed information with the AO. So you can just write down after this. Assessment shall be made under section 147. Deemed information with the AO. Procedure under section 148A not to be followed. Are we clear? Yes. Now, what will be the time limit for completion of assessment in this case? What shall be the time limit? So, in these cases, the time limit also will remain the same, which is 12 months from the end of the month in which the notice is served. Are we clear? Now, one more important thing in this case. Now, where any assessment or reassessment is pending and the search is initiated, where during the pendency of some earlier assessment year's search, assessment is pending and the search is initiated for particular period, then the period available for completion of assessment or reassessment for earlier year. Let's say, for example, my assessment for AY 18-19 is pending as on today. And let's say now the search is carried out because the authorized officer has some information, has a reason to believe some information in his hand that there is some valuable article which is representing the undisclosed income is there in some premises. So what will happen about the current assessment which is ongoing for AY 18-19? So then the period available for completion of assessment shall be extended by 12 months in a case where search is initiated or in a case where the assessee to whom any money, bullion, jewelry or article belongs to. Are we clear? So just write down. If the assessment or the reassessment of earlier AY is pending on the and the search is initiated on the date of initiation of search, time limit of completing the assessment extended by 12 months. So then the time limit will become 24 months for that earlier event. Yes or no, students? Any question, any doubt? Yes. Authorized officer means AO? No, the authorized officer is not AO. The authorized officer is different from AO Mansha. Okay. Now, what are the penalties in the case of search? So there are different penalties in the case of the search. Understand this thing. Now this is very, very important. So when the income is undisclosed, which is found during the search, the penalty is levied under section 271 AAB. 271 AAB. So if the undisclosed income is admitted during the course of search, is admitted during the course of search in the statement furnished and the assessee explains the manner in which income was derived pays the taxes together with interest along with interest in respect of undisclosed income and furnishes the return of income for the specified previous year declaring the undisclosed income before the due date of filing the return of income due date of filing the return of income or date on which notice issued under 148 expires. Or you can just write like this, time limit under 148 expires. Okay. So in this case, the penalty shall be 30%. Penalty shall be 30%. In other case, penalty shall be 60%. Yes. Now let's try and understand. So basically, if let's say for example, during the search, whatever information the authorized officer is collecting, as I said, either it will use during my assessment or if the information is relating to some other assessee, he would requisition it to another AO. The AO on which who is having the jurisdiction over that other person. And then the reassessment will be opened up under 148. 148A or show cause notice and all need not be issued in search cases. Now 148 will be issued for all those years for which the information is collected, for which the time limit has not expired. Obviously, the time limit should not have expired under 149. And that's why you have a window of 10 years. If you remember, I told you over here also that in these cases, in case the expense assets relate to more than one previous year, then notice is required for each previous year. So 148 notice will be issued. Now, if during the search operations, you disclose that, okay, you accept that you have concealed certain income. You admit during the course of search in the statement made by you on oath. You explain the nature and the manner in which the income was derived. You pay the taxes on those interest. You pay the taxes on those income along with the interest. And you disclose that income in the ROI, which is required to be filed either under 139(1) for the current year or in the response to the notice issued under 148 within the time limit. Then the penalty will be 30%. In case you do not furnish, you do not admit the undisclosed income, the AO is finding out that undisclosed income and making the addition, then the penalty will be 60%. If you cooperate, penalty 30%. If you do not cooperate, penalty will be 60%. What is undisclosed income? The income which is represented either in the form of money, bullion, jewelry, or valuable article or thing, or any entry in the books of accounts which is found during the course of search, which has not been recorded in the books of accounts, or which has not been disclosed to the income tax authorities, or any income which is found by any entry or expense recorded in the books of account which is found to be false, and which would not have been found if the search would not have been conducted. So basically, if you disclose that income by admitting that income during the course of the search, and you pay the taxes along with the interest, and you furnish the return of income for that particular year, which has ended before the date of the search, not for the ongoing year, for the previous year. And you find that, let's say, for example, it is for 23-24 or 22-23, for which the time limit has not yet expired. You can file the return of income. Or you file in response to 140. Then the penalty will be 30%. So you can write here, undisclosed income means any income represented by any money, bullion, jewelry, article or thing, jewelry or valuable article, or entry in the books of accounts or any entry in the books of accounts found in the course of search. Found in the course of search, which has not been recorded in the books of accounts, which has not been recorded in the books of accounts, not disclosed to Principal, Chief Commissioner, PCCIT or CCIT or PCIT or CIT before the date of search. Before the date of search. Secondly, any income for any income which is represented by any entry in respect of expense recorded in the books of accounts found to be false. Okay, so this is the meaning of the undisclosed income. Okay, so students, with this we are completing the search operations. Now we move towards the survey and we'll see what is the difference between the search and the survey. So the next one is power of survey under section 133A. Now, what are the powers under the survey? This is not search. Search is a raid. This is not search. In this, there is just power to enter any place within the jurisdiction This is within the jurisdiction. Whereas in the search cases, as I said here, you can enter and search any place. If outside the jurisdiction and there is reason to suspect that books of accounts or a valuable article is at that place, can search that place after the approval. After the approval. But here you have under survey power to enter place within the jurisdiction, which is within the limits of the area of that particular officer, or in respect of whom that particular officer exercises the jurisdiction. So basically, in respect of a person who is either residing in that jurisdiction or has a place of business in that jurisdiction. So basically, jurisdiction means what? Within the limits assigned to the income tax authority occupied by any person in respect of whom he exercises jurisdiction . Okay, in respect of which he is authorized for any person who is assigned the area within which such place is situated. Okay. or who exercises the jurisdiction in respect of any person occupying such place. That is the place at which business or profession or any charitable activity or any charitable activity is carried on. Now, this place of business need not be a principal place of business. So, whether at that place is a principal place of business or not, or the activity for charitable purpose is being carried out at that place. Are we clear? So, you can write here, need not be principal place of business. Not principal, it's principal. Okay. Now, once he surveys that place, this power may be exercised, so then he can inspect the books of accounts. So he has a power to inspect the books of accounts or any documents, and he can verify the cash, stock, or valuable article can verify that. And in this particular case, he cannot seize the books of accounts or stock in trade or any other documents. And this power can be exercised in respect of any place of business, whether or not such is the principal place of business. Are we clear? It can be just a place where the books of accounts are kept. So this place can be a place where the business is not being carried out. Where the business is not being carried out. Then no business or charitable activity is carried out. But any books of accounts or valuable article are kept. Relating to this business are kept, or relating to the charitable activity are kept. So basically, it can also be our office. So let's say, for example, our client is there who is keeping the books of accounts with us. So even our premises can be surveyed. Are we getting that? Because this is the place where you're keeping the books of accounts. Now, what is the time for conducting the survey? The survey can be conducted in place of any business or profession only during the business hours. And in case of residential place, only after sunrise and before the sunset. Are we clear? So basically write down the survey, the income tax authority can enter any place if it is a place of business during the business hours any other place after sunrise and before sunset. Yes. So he can enter only after sunrise and before sunset. But once he enters, he can of course carry on the search even late night. Carry on the survey late night. There's a restriction on entering the place. Now, business hours can be dependent on different businesses. Let's say, for example, it's a hotel. It starts at 9 p.m. only. So then the business hours were 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. So he has to enter during the business hours only. But then he can carry out the survey operations for the entire night also. So this is the power restriction only on entering the place. So therefore, survey can be conducted beyond these hours as well. The restriction is only on entering the place. Are we clear? Now this power of survey also extends for verification of TDS and TCS. So an income tax authority, for the purpose of verifying any TDS or TCS, may also enter into any office or place of business, okay, or any place where the books of accounts are kept to verify the TDS. But again, the income tax authority can only enter after sunrise and before sunset. Are we clear? So basically, in respect of TDS verification, in respect of TDS or TCS verification, this shall be also after sunrise and before sunset. Now this is also in the case of place of business. Okay. So if it is not a TDS TCS verification, then it is during the business hours. But if it's a TDS TCS verification, it is after sunrise and before sunset. And again, he can inspect the books of accounts. Now, what other powers that he has in the survey? He can one second. Give me a minute. Okay. Now, what are the powers he has? So, making the identification marks on the books of accounts. So they can inspect the books of accounts. They can place the identification marks on the books of accounts. There's some issue. One second. Let me just. So they can inspect the books of accounts. They can place the identification marks. Then they can basically retain the custody of books of accounts. They can impound and retain So they are not seizing the books of accounts. They are just retaining it for the purpose of examination. After recording the reasons, for maximum 15 days. If they want to retain beyond 15 days, then approval of higher authorities required. Then the approval of the higher authorities is required. They can verify cash, as I said, stock or valuable article and make an inventory of that, but they cannot seize that. Then they can record the statement of any person. So it's a very limited power compared to the search cases. Okay, so they will not basically seize anything over here. Are we clear? They cannot remove anything from this particular place. The books of accounts they can retain, but the cash, stock or valuable article they cannot. Then they also have power to collect the information. They have power to collect the information and record these statements in connection with any function or event. So basically, the income tax authorities during the survey have the power to record the statements and collect the information of any person at any time after the function and before the commencement of assessment proceedings, if they are of the opinion that with regard to the nature, scale and extent of expenditure incurred, it is necessary to do so. So this provision is intended to collect the evidence about any big expenditure which has been incurred. Are we getting that? So basically, should not event after the function is over with regard to the expenditure incurred. Now I'll tell you what it is. So basically, you see, right, there are so many big politicians, or even these days, like everybody is doing elaborate weddings, right? Now, it is quite possible that in your ITR, let's say I'm showing, let's say, income of maybe 30, 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs. But imagine I'm doing a wedding in, let's say, Udaipur, and then I'm doing wedding of like in a plush 7-star property. I'm doing a wedding of, let's say, 5-7 crore of rupees. How do they get the money? That's a huge expenditure, right? So now if they get this information about the event, they can just conduct the survey and collect this information. They can record the statements after the marriage function is over with regard to how this expenditure was incurred. What is the source of money with which this expenditure was incurred? Are we getting that? So basically, they can investigate with respect to a particular event by recording the statement of that particular person. Are we clear? Yes or no? Any questions, any doubt? So this is the power of survey. Yes, it's less serious than search. Yes, Mansha, you're correct. It's very limited power which is there. Search is raid. If there's a search happening, you're gone. It's simpler read than how it actually looks like in reality. Okay, any doubt, any questions? Fine, students. So this is the power of search and survey that we have done. Now the last thing that is pending under the assessment proceedings is the faceless assessment scheme. Now this is very important. So all this while, whatever we have learned, the assessment proceedings, either under 143.3 or under 147, this is entirely in a faceless manner. Now, this is provided under section 144B of the Income Tax Act. This is provided under 144B of the Income Tax Act, the faceless assessment proceedings. Now, how it is going to happen, we are going to talk about that in detail now. Okay. So basically, earlier it used to be the case that you go and visit the income tax office, and then you used to submit those bulk submissions, paper books, okay, voluminous books of accounts, invoices, all of that. We used to put those flags and then go with 2-3 articles, submit it to the income tax office, and then sometimes bribe the income tax officer also to get the clear assessment order. Because to remove that kind of corruption, to increase the transparency, faceless assessment scheme has been introduced. So the entire assessment proceedings that you are looking at are in a faceless manner. What are the assessments that we are looking at, students? We are looking at the best judgment assessment under 144, reassessment under 147, and normal assessment under 143.3. So everything gets covered over here. 143.3, 147, and 144. These are the only 3 assessments, right? All of this is going to get covered in a faceless manner. See, we started off, how we started off. Let me just give you a quick recap. We started off with return of income. We started off with the return of income requirements. Who is required to file the return of income? When in case of an individual, your total income exceeds the basic exemption limit, total income without the Chapter 6A deductions or 54 series exemptions. And in case you are a resident, an ordinary resident, even though your total income is not exceeding basic exemption limit, but you have a beneficial interest, or you are a beneficial owner, or you are a beneficiary of any asset outside India, including financial interest in any entity. You are a partner, you are a director in any entity, or you have a signing authority in a bank account outside India. Or you have incurred the expenditure. Even if you do not have the income exceeding the basic exemption limit, you have incurred the expenditure of electricity of more than 1 lakh, foreign travel more than 2 lakh, deposited more than 1 CR in current account, sales of business more than 60 lakh, for profession more than 10 lakh receipts, TDS, TCS more than 25,000, 50,000 for senior citizen, you are required to file the return. For firm, for company, it was mandatory. We saw there are different due dates. For charitable trust, again, we saw that if the total income exceeds the basic exemption limit before giving the exemption under 1023C, 11 and 12. The audit for them is also mandatory if their total income exceeds the basic exemption limit. However, if they do not file the return in time, they will lose out the benefit of accumulation of income. For political parties, again, it is if the total income exceeds the basic exemption limit before 13A exemption. Right? And for again, research associations, business trusts, in which it is compulsory to file. So that was the return of income requirement. Then we saw who is required to obtain the PAN, who is required to obtain the Aadhaar card, linking of PAN and Aadhaar, SFT information, right? You have all those options. And if you do not file the return under 139(1) due date, 31st July, 30th November in case of transfer pricing, 31st October for all other audit cases, then in those cases, you can go for the belated return, which is under 139(4). The time limit is 31st December, or you can revise the return in case you've already filed, there's some mistake, you can revise the return. Certain taxpayers are exempted, that also we saw. Basically, the non-residents, which are having investments in AIFs or GDRs, all of that. And then we saw that there is also option of updated return. Now, once you file the return of income, the summary assessment happens under 143(1), which is a computerized processing by the CPC, where your ROI is processed, and that has to be mandatorily done within what time limit? The time limit for that is under 143(1), 9 months from the end of the financial year in which return is filed. Now, this summary assessment will check the arithmetical errors, incorrect claims, any disallowance of losses claimed after the return filing, 139(1) due date, or Chapter 6A deductions relating to the profit-linked deductions, or any expense or additions made in the TAR which are not considered in return of income, those will be given. And the intimation will be sent to you, to which you have to respond within 30 days. If you respond, and based on that, they will pass the final intimation order, determining the tax payable or refund due. No notice of demand will be sent. This is kind of entire computerized system. Summary assessment. Then you have information which is collected by the income tax officer under 133C. They verify the information with your return of income. So you now have an e-verification scheme, where the information which is collected from the reporting entities through the statement of financial transaction is matched with your data and the notices are issued. You can provide the explanation or file the updated return if you want. Updated return can be filed only when there is the additional income you want to disclose. Even if you have filed the original return, if you have not filed the belated return, revised return, whatever, you can still file updated return within 24 months from the relevant assessment year. You cannot file if it's a loss return. Of course, if you want to convert loss to income, you can file. Or if the effect is reducing the total tax or increasing the refund, you cannot file. If the search or survey is initiated, you cannot file updated return, students. If the assessments have commenced or are completed, you cannot file the updated return. If the prosecution is initiated, you cannot file updated return. Or if the information is received under the Benami Transactions, Smugglers Act, all of that, you cannot file updated return. Are we clear? Now, updated return is to be filed for all those years where there is effect of reducing the loss or reducing the tax bill. So if you are filing for this year, you're converting loss to income, then the next year you claim the loss. So again, for that year also, you have to revise that return by filing updated return. And what will be the tax? The tax will be the tax, interest, fees, which is payable, minus any taxes paid earlier, interest under 234A, B, C, all of that. And additional tax will be payable, which will be 25% of tax and interest if the updated return is furnished in 12 months, and 50% if the updated return is furnished after the 12 months. 25% and 50% of tax and interest, not of fees. Now then you will commence your assessment proceedings. The original assessment under 143(2) by issuing you a show cause notice under 143(2), if you have understated the income, computed the excessive loss, or have underpaid the tax as to why the assessment should not be made on you. In case you have not filed the ROI, 142(1) notice will be issued requiring you to file the ROI. Or if you have already filed, to ask the books of accounts to be produced, 142(1) will be issued. To call for any further information, ledgers, invoices, 142(2) notice will be issued. And The AO has the power to conduct a special audit if the books of accounts are voluminous, if there are complex, if the nature is such that if there are doubts on correctness, if the specialized business nature is there or multiple transactions there, they can order the valuation of the inventory. They can make a reference to the valuation officer to determine the fair market value of the property or any asset. In case you do not comply with 143.2 notice, in case you do not comply with 142.1, 142.2a notice, which is a special audit valuation of inventory or reference to valuation officer, you will not only have penalty and prosecution, but you will also have a best judgment assessment under 144. What is the best judgment assessment? That the ex parte order will be passed. AO will make the assessment, whatever material is available with him, to the best of his judgment. And the order will be passed. The assessee will be given once opportunity as to why the best judgment assessment should not be made on him by issuing a show cause notice under 144. And finally, the assessment order will be passed under 144. So the assessment will then be completed under 143.3 or under 144 as the case may be within 12 months from the relevant assessment year. In case updated return is filed, then the 12 months will be regarded from the year in which the 12 months from the financial year in which updated return is furnished. And finally, the notice of demand will be issued under 156. Now, if in case the income has escaped assessment, then we have the reassessment proceedings under 147, where the notice will be first, inquiry will be made with respect to the information that is collected under 148. Information and the risk assessment strategy, audit objection, information collected by the AO either under 131 or 133 or 133B by visiting the place of business within his jurisdiction, or the information collected under 133C through the SFTs, or inspecting the books of the register of the companies under 134. These are the powers of income tax authority, right? 133 to power to call information, power to collect information by visiting the place of business under 133B, power to verify under 133C, and 134 power to inspect register of company. Right? So they can, based on that information, inquire, the AO can inquire about that information and then issue the show cause notice under 148A. Issue the show cause notice under 148A. Now, the show cause notice need not be issued in case the information is collected under 133, 133B, 133C, and 134. Directly 148 is required because the AO himself has collected the information. So 148A is not required in that. 148A is required for survey. 148A is required for audit objection, risk management strategy, and to give effect to the order of the court. Right? Show cause notice will be issued, you will reply, and then finally the order will be passed under 148A. And along with that, a notice will be issued under 148. When the search survey is carried out, again, directly in case of search, not in case of survey. In case of survey, we will have 148A procedure. In case of search, again, 148 notice will be issued for all those AYs for which the information relates to. Now, 148 can be issued for 3 years and 10 years in case the asset is representing, the income is represented by asset wherein it is going to be more than 50 lakhs. And finally, then again, there also 143.2 will be issued, 142.1, 142.2, 142.2A, all of that will be issued, and the assessment order will be passed under 143.3, then with 147 within the 12-month window which is given. Are we clear? So now all of this which is there is going to be in a faceless manner. All of this is going to be in a faceless manner. Now, when I say this is in the faceless manner, how the faceless assessment is going to be. Now, with you, the contact point shall be the National Faceless Assessment Center. Now this will be the assessee. And there will be a computerized assessment center, NFAC, National Faceless Assessment Center. Now this will automatically allocate. So you will file your return, or in case you have not filed based on the information that it has, it will automatically allocate the assessment to any of the assessment unit. It will assign the case to a specific assessment unit through automatic system. To the automated system. Right? Now then the intimation will be sent to the assessee that his assessment is going to be under the faceless manner. Now understand, you are saying, ma'am, the assessment which is going to be under the faceless manner is going to be the assessment under 143.3, 147 and 144. You're right. All of these assessments are going to be in the faceless manner. But NFAC will only issue the notices which is under 143.2 or 142.1. Only these two notices will be issued in a faceless manner. So basically, section 148A notice which is there. Then section 148 notice which is there. Section 142 notices which are there. These will not be faceless. So basically, when the reassessment will start, when the show cause notice will be issued to you under 148A, that will not be in the faceless manner. That will come to you from the jurisdictional assessing officer. That will come to you from the jurisdictional assessing officer. It is only after this stage that the faceless scheme will start. So the faceless will start from here. You will get an intimation here that from here onwards, your assessment will be faceless assessment. So till this point, this will be handled by jurisdictional AU. So notice under 148A, 148, this will be by the jurisdictional AU. Are we getting that? So this will not be in a faceless manner. Only 143.2 will be in the faceless manner. But that doesn't mean that the assessment under 147 is not in the faceless manner. After 143.2, as I said, the assessment will be in a faceless manner till the completion of assessment. So only the start part, I don't know why they have kept outside the faceless assessment scheme. Are we clear? So basically, NFAC will issue the 143.2 or 142.1 to the assessee. And then the assessee has to file the response to the NFAC, which it will then send to the assessment unit. So the assessee will file the response and this NFAC will send the response to the assessment unit. Now this is the stage 1. Okay, this is the stage 1. Now NFAC, if it wants further information or documents or evidence, or it wants to conduct the inquiry, or it wants to some technical assistance in respect of some technical matter like valuation of property, whereby a reference is to be made to a valuation officer, determination of arm's length price, where the reference is to be made to a TPO, or reference is to be made to the commissioner or principal commissioner for withdrawal of registration of a trust, then in that particular case, the assessment unit will request to the NFAC to transfer this particular point for verification of information. Let's say, for example, for verifying the information, to transfer the points to the verification unit, which will verify by obtaining the statements on oath, by collecting the information by issuing the summons under 131(1). You have the power to issue summons. You have power to collect the information under 133. Right? So the AO can issue the notice to any other person, to my creditor, to my debtor, to validate my ledger. Under 133, he can issue. He can issue the summons under 131. Isn't it? He can compel the production of books of accounts by other person to give your ledger also. That will be done by the verification unit and not by the assessment unit. Cross verification. Then any fair market value determination is done by the valuation officer. Valuation of inventory, special audit, those are done by technical unit. Transfer pricing. Are we clear? So basically, the assessment unit can request to the NFAC request for obtaining further information, request for obtaining further information or documents, or conducting inquiry or verification by verification unit. You can write down summons under section 131 or collect information under section 133. Okay? Or seek technical assistance. For example, determination of fair market value or valuation or transfer price, arm's length price, or the withdrawal of approval of trust from the technical unit. Okay? So NFAC can request that. And then if, let's say, for example, NFAC assessment unit wants additional information from assessee, then the NFAC will send the notice to the assessee under 141 to provide the further information or provide the books of accounts. And assessee will again have to file the response to that within the time allowed. Or if the NFAC assessment unit requests for the verification, then it will assign the case to the verification unit. Again, through the automated system, it will assign the case to a technical unit in case of some technical request. And then whatever information is received, it will again pass on to the AE. So based on this request, NFAC will forward to VU or TU or assessee, and then we'll pass it on to the AE. Okay. Now let's say, for example, where the assessee fails to comply with the notice under 143.2, or he does not submit the documents to 142.1, NFAC shall intimate such failure to the assessment unit. So in case, let's say for example, no response received, then if no response is received to 142.1 or 143.2, what happens, student? Then we have the best judgment assessment, right? Then we have the best judgment assessment, isn't it? Then we have the best judgment assessment. So then in that particular case, you have the best judgment assessment which will be done. Then under section 140. So there comes your best judgment assessment. So then AU will serve through the NFAC the notice under 144 as to why the best judgment assessment should not be made. So then best judgment show cause notice under 144 will be served on the assessee. And the assessee has to again furnish his response. In case the assessee responds, NFAC will forward to the AU. Where the assessee fails to file the response, the NFAC will intimate to the assessment unit. And of course, what the assessment unit will do is, after taking into account all the material available on record, it will prepare the income or loss determination proposal. It will prepare an income or loss determination proposal. So this is the stage 1. Now we are entering into the stage 2, where the income is now computed. So again, now we have here the assessee. This is my NFAC and this is my assessment unit. So stage 1 was calling for information. Stage 2 is now the assessment order, how it will be passed. So now AU will prepare the income or loss determination proposal where there is no variation prejudicial to the assessee is proposed. Where no additions are proposed. Or if the additions are proposed, show cause notice where variations prejudicial to assessee are proposed. The show cause notice will be issued to the assessee as to why the variation should not be made. Okay. Now again, this will go through the AU to the NFAC and NFAC to the assessee. Now again, assessee will file the response to the show cause notice. And if the assessee does not file the response, the NFAC will intimate to the assessment unit. And after considering the response, so this will be a response, and this response will be given to the assessment unit. After considering the response, the AU will prepare the income or loss determination proposal. So this is the show cause notice which is issued. And based on that, whatever response it gives, the assessment unit will prepare the income or loss determination proposal and again send it to the NFAC. Are we clear? And in case where there were no variations which were proposed, then the NFAC will prepare, based on the income or loss determination proposal, will prepare the assessment order. Sorry, the NFAC will convey to the assessment unit to prepare the draft order. Are we clear? So basically, AU will then prepare the income or loss determination proposal. Then NFAC will ask the AU to prepare the draft assessment order. It can forward this income or loss determination proposal for a review also. So NFAC can send this to even review unit to review this. And based on the suggestions of the review unit, it will forward those suggestions to the assessment unit. It will forward the review report to the assessment unit. And based on that, the assessment unit will prepare the draft order, either rejecting or accepting the modifications. And then again, this draft order, which will be prepared, this will again be sent to the NFAC, which will then send to the assessment unit shall send the draft order to the assessee. So to the NFAC. Are we clear? And then based on that, the NFAC will convey to the assessment unit to pass the final assessment order. Are we clear? So based on that, based on the draft assessment order, it will then send the final assessment order to the assessee. Are we clear? So based on that, again, it will pass a final assessment order. Yes or no? Any questions? Any doubt? So this is the faceless assessment scheme. Yes, student? So from 143.2 or 142.1 only these two notices are issued in a faceless manner. As I said, first it is entirely whatever you have done is going to be now through the NFAC. That's it. That's the only scheme of faceless assessment that we have. Yes or no? So there is no personal communication which is required. All will be done through your e-filing portal. Through your emails, you will get these notices. And you can request for a video conferencing. You can make a request for that. And of course, they will have to accept that request and they will grant you the video conferencing opportunity. Okay? Yes or no? Any doubt? Yes, students. So you can just write video conferencing opportunity may be availed by assessee to present his case and to explain it in a detailed manner. Yes. Now, in case the special audit is invoked, now how, you will ask, ma'am, how the special audit will be done in a faceless manner. So if the AU feels that the special audit needs to be done, then in that particular case, it will request to NFAC. Now, NFAC will, if it considers it appropriate, will forward the reference of invoking the audit or inventory valuation. So the Principal Chief Commissioner or Principal Director General who is in charge of the NFAC will, if he considers appropriate, will forward the, if he considers the appropriate that the provisions of special audit may be invoked, forward the reference which is received from the assessment unit to the Principal Chief Commissioner and then transfer the case to the physical jurisdiction. It will be done in a physical manner. Special audit will not be done in a faceless manner. It will be done by the AO having the jurisdiction over that case. Are we clear? Yes or no? Okay, students. Now the last one point which is remaining is GAAR cases. In case where the general anti-avoidance regulations are invoked, if AO at any stage feels that the GAAR is to be invoked, then in that case, the AO will make a reference to the Principal Chief Commissioner or the Chief Commissioner at any stage of assessment on the basis of the material to declare an arrangement as an impermissible avoidance arrangement. So basically, in case of GAAR, AO to make a reference to PCCIT, sorry, not PCCIT, PCIT or the CIT at any stage of assessment or the reassessment to declare any arrangement as impermissible avoidance arrangement, which we call it as IAA, which is an abusive arrangement, and determine the consequence. Fine. Then the PCIT or CIT will issue the notice to the assessee. They will issue notice to the assessee, giving him the opportunity of being heard. If the assessee objects, if the assessee objects to the notice, and if the PCIT is satisfied, PCIT or CIT is satisfied with the objections of the assessee, then it will communicate to the AO. They will communicate this to the AO. In case they are not satisfied, then in that particular case, the PCIT or CIT will make another reference to the approving panel. They will make a reference to the approving panel to declare the arrangement as impermissible avoidance arrangement. Okay, and if the assessee does not furnish any reply, assessee does not reply, then in that particular case, the PCIT or the CIT will issue the directions as he may deem fit. As he deems fit. Okay. Now, if the reference is made to the approving panel, then approving panel will make inquiry. They will make the inquiry. They will call for information or documents or the books of accounts. And then the assessee to furnish the information. Okay. And based on that, the approving panel will issue the directions. Then they will issue the directions. And then according to the directions of the approving panel, AO to complete the assessment. Then according to the approving panel's directions, the AO will complete the assessment. Against this directions, no appeal is possible. No appeal will lie against these directions. So these directions are binding on the assessee, PCIT, CIT, and AO. So based on these directions, AO will complete the assessment. And again, before completing the assessment, prior approval of PCIT or CIT shall be taken for passing the assessment order. Are we clear? So this is in respect of the GAAR proceedings. This is how the assessment shall be made. Okay, so in the case of the GAAR proceedings, this is how the assessment shall be made. Are we clear, students? Yes or no? Any doubt? With this, we complete the assessment section. Okay, and in the next class, we are going to start with the appeals and revisions. Namrata, with practice, you will be able to revise and remember all the sections. Okay. So thank you so much for today's class, and we'll meet in the next class. Okay. Thank you so much. We can close the session.